Hello everyone. In this video I will discuss one of the films called The Moon, 2023. And never forget that I always pray for you and your family to be happy and healthy always. In 2024, South Korea launched its first spacecraft named Nareho to the Moon with the aim of collecting helium-3 He-3 samples for research. Helium-3 is a gas formed by solar wind which then gets trapped in the lunar soil, and its quantity increases each day. If the entire world transitions to using green energy entirely, He-3 could be a solution, as it can be used as fuel for nuclear fusion reactors. Scientists estimate that 25 tons of He-3 could fulfill the world's energy needs for 1 year. Just imagine, if humans could mine He-3 on the Moon, energy would be virtually endless for thousands of years. While He-3 is found on Earth, it is extremely rare due to the Earth's atmosphere protecting it from the intense heat of solar radiation. In contrast, the Moon lacks an atmosphere, exposing it to direct solar radiation and making He-3 abundant. However, tragedy struck before the spacecraft Nareho could exit Earth's atmosphere. The rocket carrying it exploded, resulting in the tragic deaths of 3 astronauts. Due to this failure, South Korea was expelled from the International Space Agency. In a statement, the Korean minister named Suhum explained that research on He-3 is crucial for clean energy and future sustainability. It is not unlikely that advanced countries will compete to reach the Moon to obtain helium-3, including Korea. The director of the Korean Space Agency, Naro Space Center, Min Gyu, stated that failure is not an obstacle. If they give up now, the deaths of the 3 previous astronauts would be in vain. That's why Naro is constructing a second rocket named Wuriho, which will carry 3 talented astronauts to the Moon. They are Air Force Commander Lee Sang-won, whose wife is currently pregnant. He wants to name his child when he is on the Moon and looks at the Earth. The second is Lieutenant Cho Yong-jong, one of the best and most accomplished military members. The last one is Sergeant Hwang Seon-woo, a novice pilot and the youngest among the 3. He promises not to waste the sacrifices of the first 3 astronauts and will complete the mission with his 2 senior colleagues. After undergoing 2 years of training on December 12, 2029, the spacecraft Wuriho was launched towards the Moon. Initially, the mission proceeded smoothly, and the Wuriho spacecraft was approaching the Moon's orbit. However, unexpectedly, solar storm activity increased, releasing a massive amount of coronal radiation into space, disabling all satellite functions in Earth's orbit. This phenomenon caused disruptions in radio signals and communication networks worldwide. As a result, communication between the Wuriho crew and the control center was severed. The control center attempted to contact NASA's Lunar Gateway or the space station operating near the Moon's orbit. However, the station also experienced interference, and they are currently working on repairs. Until now, the fate of the crew remains unknown because there is a high possibility that their spacecraft was also impacted by this solar storm. Meanwhile, in the spacecraft, several malfunctions occurred, causing the systems to go offline. Commander Lee and Cho were conducting repairs outside, while Hwang monitored from inside. The loss of communication made the 3 of them seem lost in outer space. Unlike Cho, who believed that outer space was like heaven because there were no problems like those on Earth, after some repairs, the systems came back online and transmitted video signals to the control center on Earth. The monitor screen showed the 2 crew members making repairs and their spacecraft floating near the Moon's orbit. However, the control center had already warned the crew not to perform EVA or activities outside the spacecraft. Unintentionally, Lieutenant Cho noticed sparks on one of the solar panels, and upon inspection, a fuel tank leak was discovered. Unfortunately, the sparks ignited the fuel tank, causing an explosion that engulfed Commander Lee and Lieutenant Cho.
조사해! 조대님! 정신 차리세요, 중령님! 중령님!
And shortly after, the video transmission to the control center was cut off. The incident caused Lieutenant Cho to be thrown into outer space and died instantly. Hwang attempted to help the commander, but the commander forbade him from opening the airlock door as the internal air pressure would push him out. Moreover, his oxygen reserve was leaking, and there were only 15 seconds left. The commander instructed Hwang to reboot the system to restore communication and then requested assistance so that anyone on Earth could pick him up. After that, Commander Lee released his tether, bid farewell, and pushed his body away from the spacecraft. After restarting the communication system, it reconnected with the control center. Hwang reported all the events, and he was the only survivor of the incident. The officials then held a meeting and requested the mission to be cancelled, bringing Hwang back home. Because other than the commander and lieutenant, no one could land the spacecraft on the moon. At least they could save one person. But the issue was that the spacecraft's command module could not respond to the control center, preventing them from performing a remote return and bringing Hwang back. The only solution was to find the two designers of the spacecraft module. The Wuriho spacecraft was a replica of the one that exploded 5 years ago, so the technology used was still the same. If they could adapt the module, they might be able to take control of the spacecraft from Earth. Unfortunately, one of them was known to have committed suicide out of shame for the mission's failure, and the other had chosen to live in seclusion in a remote village. The scene then shifts to a man named Kim, along with a girl named Han, who are hunting boars in the deep forest. However, when Kim is about to shoot, he realizes that he forgot to load his gun with bullets. The boars hear them, and just as the animals are about to attack, a helicopter arrives. Fortunately, they both escape to an observatory center. It turns out that Kim was formerly the director of Naro Flight and the architect of the Nari spacecraft's command module. They ask Kim to return to Naro and rescue Hwang, who is now in the lunar orbit. However, Kim refuses and asks why they don't seek help from NASA or other aviation foundations. Since leaving the international membership, NASA has opposed this program, so there is no other choice but to ask for their help. Moreover, Hwang is the son of his late friend and the head of technology who committed suicide out of shame for the failure of the previous mission. Meanwhile, on television, Hwang makes a statement that he will continue the mission under any circumstances. Hwang wants to fulfill his father's dream of landing on the moon, no matter how difficult it may be. Hearing his determination and perseverance, Kim decides to return to Naro. Arriving at the control center, Kim sees Hwang shivering because the temperature inside the spacecraft has dropped and no one can address the issue. Kim takes control and instructs Hwang to follow his commands. First, the spacecraft must be directed toward the sun, which will raise the temperature without the need for heaters. Since the first thruster is damaged, Hwang can activate the second and third thrusters to maneuver and then lock the spacecraft into lunar orbit. After that, Kim asks Hwang to activate passive thermal control mode to stabilize the room temperature. Upon hearing Kim's voice, Hwang asks if he knows him. Kim confirms that he is a friend and former colleague of his father, and they have met before. Shortly after, the spacecraft passes the far side of the moon, and communication will be temporarily interrupted. Kim asks Hwang to rest before his spacecraft rotates back to the near side. In the coldness of outer space, Hwang remembers his two commanders who died, both having unfulfilled dreams. In his heart, Hwang promises that he will successfully complete this mission. In a television interview, a reporter asks why they don't seek help from NASA, especially when they have the lunar gateway not far from the moon. Meanwhile, Kim contacts an executive at NASA named Moon Young, who happens to be his former wife. Moon is surprised by Kim suddenly reaching out and expressing the intention to return to the Naro Control Center after deciding to retire. Kim asks for assistance in bringing NASA's Moon Gateway station closer to the Wuriho spacecraft to rescue Hwang. From the current distance, they would meet in the next 2 days. However, Moon explains that she cannot do anything because the station is undergoing repairs due to the previous solar wind impact. Currently, all communication is still disrupted, and asking for help would likely go unheard. On the other hand, Hwang is preparing for a lunar landing. Kim rushes to stop him, as he lacks experience in operating the landing capsule. In reality, Kim's return to Naro is not to help Hwang complete his mission, but to bring Hwang back home, preventing him from facing the same fate as his father. However, the control center cannot do anything to prevent it, because they cannot remotely control the spacecraft. Repairing the module takes 2 days, and NASA's Lunar Gateway station also needs 2 days to reach Hwang's location. Moreover, The lunar landing is Hwang's own desire. He wants to fulfill his father's dream and not waste the sacrifices of the previous astronauts. Then Hwang asks Kim to help him guide how to operate the landing module. There is no choice. They have to work together for the success of the mission. On the other hand, the landing mission is also broadcast live so that the people of Korea can witness and show their support to Hwang. The scene then flashes back to when Kim and Hwang's father built their first rocket. At that time, Hwang's father brought Hwang and introduced him to Kim, hoping that someday he could join the National Space Agency. Now, that hope has come true. Hwang will be the first Korean to land on the moon. Shortly afterward, the landing module is released and glides to the designated landing site. Despite initial doubts, Hwang successfully lands on the moon. No one is happier than Hwang, having successfully realized his father's dream and fulfilled everyone's expectations. Later, after completing his task, Hwang is asked to return to the landing capsule while waiting for Kim to fix the command module so that the control center can take over the spacecraft. Additionally, Naro will seek NASA's assistance in retrieving Hwang using their lunar gateway. Hwang then deploys the rover and heads to the location where he will complete his mission. To facilitate navigation, Hwang flies a drone to the predetermined coordinates. Meanwhile, at NASA's office, Moon reports that their lunar gateway has been repaired and can be used to retrieve Hwang. However, a White House official asks what Korea will offer in return if NASA provides assistance. There is one thing they should consider before sending the lunar gateway to the moon. Recently, NASA detected a meteor shower heading towards the moon, so Moon should assess the potential damage to the station before deciding to provide assistance. The next issue is competition. Every country undoubtedly has interests in the natural resources on the moon. Surely, they can use this opportunity to mutually benefit each other. While on the moon, Hwang reached the location where he would collect samples from at least 3 different sites. In short, after collecting samples at the last location, Hwang felt vibrations that could be caused by a meteor shower. Shortly after, NASA contacted him, informing that they couldn't provide assistance due to the ongoing meteor shower. Moon mentioned that the shower was happening on the dark side of the moon, so Hwang should still be able to continue his mission. However, Moon advised that it would be better for Hwang to quickly return to the spacecraft before any undesired events occur. Kim requested them to instruct Hwang to hurry back because he was currently at the border between the dark side and the bright side. Still, they insisted that the mission could proceed while monitoring the situation. After a while, Hwang contacted the control center, delivering 2 pieces of good news. He successfully extracted ice samples and stored them in a container to bring back to Earth. The second was that the meteor shower seemed to have ended. But suddenly, his drone flew, detecting danger as there was another meteor shower occurring at his location. Then, Hwang quickly boarded the rover and hurriedly returned to the landing capsule. The meteor shower caused Hwang to lose control, and he slipped into a crater. Hwang then called his drone to assist in an emergency evacuation. Meanwhile, Kim successfully completed the command module program to take control of the spacecraft. After restarting the system, they successfully gained control of the Wuri-ho spacecraft. As Hwang approached the lander, he blamed the thruster rockets for the main spacecraft's direction. After reaching orbit, the control center took over the lander to dock it back with the spacecraft, and the merger was successful. Unfortunately, before Hwang could launch the spacecraft back to Earth, it was hit by the meteor shower. Due to the loss of power, the spacecraft lost control and drifted aimlessly. Fortunately, Hwang was still in the landing capsule, which saved him from the impact. However, the landing capsule was thrown to the dark side of the moon, and communication with the control center was lost. 4 hours after communication was lost, there were no signs of Hwang reconnecting with the control center. In the midst of despair, Kim received an SMS from Moon, informing him that Hwang was still alive. Moon secretly accessed communication on the far side of the moon to find out Hwang's current condition. Kim and Han then went to an old observatory, using an old radio system and entering the access code provided by Moon to communicate with Hwang. What Moon said was true. Even though injured, Hwang was still alive after his landing capsule stranded in a crater. There was still about 40% oxygen left, giving him enough time to consider his next actions. Han secretly recorded Hwang's conversation and uploaded it to social media to inform the public. Shortly after, a helicopter arrived to take them back to the control center. Kim provided the coordinates of the signal location so that the control center could connect with Hwang. Meanwhile, at NASA's office, Moon was suspected of providing the communication access code to the dark side of the Moon. As the source of the transmission signal was traced to the observatory and not Naro, an investigation into Moon was ordered. But before they could proceed, the White House called. After people learned that Hwang was still alive, Naro faced public pressure to launch a rescue mission. However, the dilemma was that the Wuri-ho spacecraft had been destroyed, and the remaining oxygen was only a few hours. Launching a rocket to the Moon would also take at least 3 days, assuming no issues occurred. Unexpectedly, NASA finally granted Naro's request to rescue Hwang using their Lunar Gateway station after an emergency meeting at the White House. Ignoring human lives when assistance could be provided would generate negative sentiment. Certainly NASA didn't want to tarnish its reputation by refusing help, but an investigation into Moon's violation would still proceed. If proven guilty, authorities ensured that this rescue mission would be Moon's last job at NASA. After the preparations were made, Hwang blamed the thrusters for the capsule's failure to return to the Moon's orbit to meet the lunar gate. Unfortunately, the capsule failed to ascend, causing damage to the docking mechanism, meaning the capsule couldn't join the lunar gate. In the midst of despair, Kim implored Hwang not to give up, as he could still manually operate the capsule. However, Hwang, exhausted and indifferent to the prospect of returning home, intended to conclude the mission just as his father had left him. Hwang didn't seek Kim's forgiveness for his father's actions, but he would repent for his own sins. Perhaps this was the best way to bring closure to the sadness he had felt for so long. Kim then referred to Hwang as a coward, likening his decision to his father's surrender due to a failure that was everyone's responsibility. However, behind his father's decision to end his life was a secret that Hwang had been unaware of all this time. One day before the launch of Nareho, Hwang's father came to see Kim. He had identified an issue with the engine, stating that it would be dangerous to proceed and requested a 2-month launch delay. Kim refused, believing his calculations were accurate, and the risk of an accident was minimal. Additionally, they had already delayed the launch 5 times and couldn't afford further postponements. Kim didn't ask Hwang for forgiveness, but urged him to forgive his father. He advised Hwang to return to Earth so that his father's sacrifice wouldn't be in vain for the second time. Upon hearing Kim's honesty, Hwang regained his determination and was ready to follow any command to return to Earth. After initiating the rocket boosters, Hwang attempted to control it manually. However, due to the damaged docking of the lander, the capsule couldn't join the lunar gate. When the capsule was on the bright side of the Moon, Hwang had to jump out and land on the surface, awaiting the arrival of the lunar gate to rescue him. After exiting the lander, Kim urged Hwang to use his drone thrusters to slow down and reduce impact, and the effort succeeded perfectly.
Please reply if you hear.
This is Hwang Seon-woo speaking. We're stable.
Meanwhile, Moon contacted the Lunar Gate crew, pleading for them to carry out the rescue as effectively as possible. To them, the hopes of the entire world were entrusted. Shortly afterward, the Lunar Gate lander descended to pick up Hwang and then brought him back to Earth. After returning to Earth, Hwang expressed his gratitude to everyone who assisted him. Thanks to Kim's help, he was asked to return to Naro to support the space agency in upcoming missions, but Kim declined. He decided to return to his old observatory and continue teaching school children about outer space. The investigation into Moon was cancelled. What she did made everyone realize that humanity's values are far more crucial than political or national interests. Her right decisions and strong leadership led her to be appointed as the director of NASA. This incident made all parties realize that the moon does not belong to any single country. Any information about lunar natural resources should be shared with all nations. In the following days, Kim resumed teaching children at the observatory. Children gathered around someone wearing the observatory's astronaut costume. Kim asked the person to take it off, not expecting that it was Hwang behind the costume, paying him respect. Hwang understood that the loss of his father was not solely Kim's fault. Kim only wanted to do his best to avoid them both being deemed failures due to the frequent mission delays. For this reason, no apologies were needed from either of them, and finally the film concluded. And that's it for the story series of this film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to support this channel by subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video. Goodbye.